let's just have a quick talk about what we're going to explore, just to make sure that you've joined the call that you were expecting to join. So we're going to be spending a bit of time getting to know each other, and then we'll look at what is coaching, and we'll look at the difference between traditional coaching and transformative coaching, because we need to all be on the same page really in terms of what is this thing that we're here talking about today. Why does coaching matter in today's world? How is it relevant? What are the needs that it's potentially responding to? What are some of the skills and qualities of a transformative coach, so that you can kind of get a sense of whether you feel you have some of those qualities or aspire to develop them further. We'll look at the coaching profession and various different possibilities in terms of career pathways. And we'll look at the journey, not just the journey to become a coach and to become qualified, but what might the journey beyond that look like? Because becoming qualified is just one of the first milestones, really. And then we'll share with you lots of information about the course and the training that we offer, and then at the end I'll just share with you what's the process, so that you just are informed about what that process is. And for those of you who are feeling like this might be right for you, there is a little offer that I'm going to share with you as well. But again, there's not going to be any pressure to make any decisions. It's all just information for you. So I'm going to share a little bit about me and my coaching journey, not because I think it's typical or that it's going to be indicative of what your coaching journey is or might be, but it's just useful to hear about other people's experiences, because it can open up our curiosity about possibilities, and it can sometimes inspire us with things we haven't thought about previously. So my coaching journey began in probably around 2013, and at that time I was working in my previous career, which was human resources and learning and development. And I was working for a big corporate organisation in London. I'd been doing it for about 10 years. It fell into my lap as a career. It's not something that I was, deliberately pursuing. But when it did fall into my lap, I thought, well, why not? I feel like I'm supposed to have a career. I'm supposed to have some kind of path that I follow, and this seems as good as any. But that's probably quite indicative of how I was navigating life at the time. I was doing quite a lot of it on autopilot and doing the things that I thought I should do. And I think I felt like there was some kind of deal where if I did all the things I should do, like find a career and, have a CV that looks like this, and have, work my way up and take on more responsibility and earn more money and get more senior and da 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 da. If I did all that stuff, I would end up feeling happy, fulfilled, and rewarded. I felt like that was the deal. Um, Not sure why. I don't think I remember anyone actually telling me that. But I got to this point in 2013 and I wasn't feeling happy or fulfilled or rewarded with various different aspects of my life. And I was kind of asking myself questions like, is this it? Is this kind of what life is about? Is it just me? Everyone else seems quite happy. Is it just me? Am I, not functioning properly in some way? And I decided I needed to, well, for quite a while actually, I carried on doing the same things and just hoped that I'd get a different result. So I'm just going to carry on doing this stuff and hope that I start feeling differently. I now realize that's Einstein's definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. But, we need to learn these things the hard way sometimes. So I finally got to the point where I realized I needed to make some changes. And that's why I started looking into coaching. So initially, I was looking for a coach for myself. I almost immediately got distracted by Google search results that were about training as a coach. And I started reading, and it started to really appeal to me, predominantly because I felt like if I trained to do this type of work, I would be able to apply what I was learning to myself for the rest of my life. I felt like I would be able to almost install a new life navigation system for myself to help me figure out who am I, what do I want, what's important to me, what's meaningful to me, what are my values, what's holding me back, how might I overcome those things, what is possible, all of that. Um, I also thought, well, it's a qualification, and those are things that you should do, and it would look good on my CV, and that's something I should do. And if I stay in my current career, which I was open to doing, um, I can use it, so I can justify the doing it because it's going to look good on my CV and it's going to support my career. But those were all side things, really. I didn't do it because I thought I wanted to be a coach. Weirdly. I felt like I needed a coach, and then I thought, well, actually, if I learn to do this type of work, I'll get loads of coaching anyway, but also I'll learn how to kind of navigate life differently. And and that's what I did. I chose Animas to train with, and about two-thirds of the way through the course, the training, the qualification process, I reached a point where I became a lot more aware, actually. What my values were. It really started teaching me the things I wanted to learn about myself. And I got to a point where I realized that I'd been telling myself a great big fat lie, um, otherwise known as a limiting belief. And my limiting belief was I can't possibly leave my current job until I've figured out exactly what I'm going to do next, and it's all set up and it's all certain and secure and definite and safe. And that lie was keeping me stuck because I didn't know what I wanted to do next, and I couldn't figure it out because I was so overwhelmed with the experience of being where I was. So I had a kind of a moment of clarity where I realized that I had this belief, and I realized that it wasn't true, and I realized that I was the one that had the autonomy and the agency to actually choose to do something differently. And I realized I needed to quit my job in order to be able to figure out what I wanted to do next. I needed some space and some time to figure that out. So that's what I did. I quit my job and I had 3 months worth of savings. So I gave myself 3 months of time. And during that time, I finished my qualification and I set up a coaching practice as a hobby business because I really enjoyed doing it. I wanted to carry on doing it in some kind of form. Still didn't think it was what I wanted to do as my main thing. Um, but I thought, well, some people make jewelry and sell it as a hobby. I'm going to offer coaching as a hobby. And in retrospect, that was a genius bit of uh, programming. It was a genius bit of perspective choosing because I framed it as a hobby. It took all the pressure away. I didn't have to pay the bills with it. I didn't have to earn loads of money with it. I didn't have to conform with how a grown-up business is supposed to look. And it gave me a huge amount of freedom and creativity, which led me to create my own website. I drew my own logo with felt tip pens, and it was still my logo until last year. I coached people in my VW camper van because I didn't have any budget for to hire a venue, and I didn't really want clients coming to my house. And I had a kind of an aversion to the idea of being in a magnolia decorated room with two armchairs and a pot plant, which is, I think, what people were anticipating it would feel like. Um, so yeah, and it was really fun. Actually, it was challenging and scary, but it was quite fun. And I did a few part-time jobs and a few short-term contracts to keep the pressure off financially. And after and it started generating some money. And after about 9 months, I'd created a fairly successful part-time coaching practice. Um, so I carried on in that space, figuring things out, exploring different opportunities, experimenting, doing different things. Um, and in 2017, I received an email from Animas saying, we're expanding our training team. Is anyone interested? And I thought, actually, yes, because that really resonates with me in terms of the coaching, but also the learning and development piece that I used to really enjoy. So I followed that. And then as a result of that, I then got an opportunity to train as a supervisor, which meant I could support other coaches in their coaching practice. I added in some other associate work, so working as a trainer or as a coach for other organizations, and ended up with a portfolio career. It was a bit like a buffet, you know, there was just lots of different bits to it, but it made up a whole kind of uh, working life. And it's all about coaching, but it's not all doing coaching. So some of it's training, some of it's supervision, some of it is coaching, some of it's through my own coaching practice, some of it is as an associate coach. And when lockdown happened, all my work went online and it stayed online, which gave me geographical freedom. Um, it's so much more acceptable now. People are much more open to coaching and training online, which means that we can coach from anywhere in the world, really, as long as we've got a good internet connection. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. And as I say, I'm not anticipating that my experience is going to be the same as yours, um, or even uh, slightly similar. You know, it might be wildly, vastly different, but it is useful potentially to hear about other people's routes. Let's start to get into this then around what is coaching. So I'm going to share a definition with you, and I'm not saying it's the right definition. It's certainly not the only definition. There's a lot of work that gets done out there that gets called coaching, and it can really vary in terms of, you know, very directive coaching around, you know, maybe skill development, sports coaching, music coach, right through to very non-directive coaching. So this is the type of coaching that we're talking about here today, just so that we can all get on the same page. So we're saying that coaching is a collaborative, non-directive conversation that brings about change through inquiry, reflection, choice, and new behaviours. So just take a moment just to kind of let that sink in and absorb that. So we're just going to unpack this a little bit. First of all, collaborative. What we mean by that is that we are working, the coach and the client are working in a collaborative way. It's not like a situation or a dynamic where the coach is up here being very directive and being the expert and saying, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it, you know, here's the structure, it's all laid out for you. We work in a very collaborative way, co-creating what happens. It's non-directive. So again, we're not up here saying you need to think, feel, and do this, or you should be thinking this or doing this, or this is the answer, or this is the direction to go in. Again, what we do as coaches is we say, actually, the client is the expert when it comes to being them. Our job as the coach is to help them to access that expertise. So it's not about us knowing the right answers, it's about us being able to create the conditions for the other person to access their own expertise and their own agency and choice. Collaborative, non-directive, it's a conversation, but it's not a conversation like the one that you would have with a friend or a colleague or a member of your family, because coaching is about two people focused on one person's agenda. So it's the resources of two people, but they're focused just on one of those people's agenda. And that's very different from the type of conversation we are probably used to, where each person quite naturally has their own agenda. It's about change, so it's about creating change. Coaching is very much around where are you now and where would you like to be? So first of all, exploring those 2 points and getting clarity around them and discovering what they are. But then thinking about, well, how are you going to move from where you are now to where you'd like to be? So what needs to change? What would you like to be different? And the way that we help to create the conditions for that change is through asking questions and being curious. Reflection, so that can be us being a reflective surface, a bit like a mirror, but also inviting our clients to reflect, because often we're so focused on what's in front of us that we forget to draw out the insight and the learning and the values from what's behind us. Choice, recognizing that we do have choice, we do have agency, and ultimately new behaviors, because if you want to get a different experience, you probably need to do something different. Yeah. Do something different, get a different result. The thing that I really love about reflection is the idea that we can't see the label when we're inside the bottle. Does that make sense? You know, if when we're inside ourselves, we can't see what other people see. We need some kind of reflective surface. And often we're unconscious about some of the things that we're saying, some of the things that we're doing, some of the messages that our bodies and our emotions are communicating that we're not even aware of, because from the perspective that we're experiencing it from inside ourselves, we can't see it, but someone outside us potentially can, and can reflect that back to us and help us to have that kind of richer sense of ourselves. So this is the definition of coaching. But what is transformative coaching? So transformative coaching is everything that we've just spoken about, plus transformative coaching allows us to work in a much broader and much deeper way. So our definition of transformative coaching, it's everything that we've just been speaking about, and transformative coaching explores who we are and how we live, unearthing the beliefs and assumptions that shape us, and recognizing the wider systems that influence and are influenced by us, in order to open new ways of being, both within and beyond ourselves. So transformative coaching, it allows us to really connect with our client at the level of being a human being, because we're human beings, we're not human doings. And often we're so focused on what am I doing? What do I do about it? That we forget all of the other parts of who we are. So this is about who we are being and how we are being. And looking at what's going on under the surface. So if I hold up my very sophisticated drawing of an iceberg, this is a metaphor for a human being. What we see on the surface is just one small part. The majority is under the surface. And down here is where we often find things like beliefs, values, assumptions, expectations, previous conclusions, programming. There's different parts of ourselves that can be operating down here that might be showing up with different ways of thinking and feeling and behaving that show up in response to different external stimulus. And this stuff down here is often what's driving the way that we're showing up on the surface. If we only address what's on the surface and we don't address what's going on down here, then those drivers are still there. So it's really hard then to create transformative change. And by transformative, we mean kind of like fundamental change. It might not be big, it might be small, but it's fundamental. And it's really hard to unsee what we've now seen. So when we are able to become more consciously aware of what's going on down here and what is it driving, and is it useful, and is it helpful, and then what might need to be different in order for us to move forward in the way that we want to, then the change is more likely to be transformative. But it's not just about what's going on in our clients' inner world, it's also about the contexts and the systems that they are part of. because we don't exist in a vacuum. We are part of multiple different systems, usually completely outside of our conscious awareness. We're part of cultural systems, political systems, organizational, family, legal, financial, religious, ecosystems, all kinds of different systems. And those systems will be having an impact and an influence on us. And the way that we are being within those systems will have an impact on the systems as well. So transformative coaching allows us to acknowledge the complexity of all these different aspects of what it is to be a human being in the 21st century on this planet, trying to navigate life. um, so this is our definition. And there's a couple of other ways that I would like to share what we mean by transformative with you, and then I'll pause and just see what kind of sense it's making. So we've got our definition. We can also think about 3 levels of change within coaching. Now, this is very, very oversimplified, but just to kind of get a sense of what we're talking about. First level of change is performance level. So performance coaching, also you might think of it as traditional coaching. This is where we are very focused on a specific goal. So it's usually something that is tangible and measurable. And we have a very narrow focus just on that goal and achieving that goal. So it tends to focus mostly on behavior. Yeah. So what are we doing? What are we not doing? What other things could we consider doing? And then what are we going to do? So those of you that are familiar with the GROW model, very much in this territory. Yeah. Sometimes that is exactly what your client wants and exactly what your client needs. But if they want something or need something that goes broader or deeper than that, it can be restrictive if that's the only way that you know how to coach. The next level of change is developmental coaching, and this goes a little bit broader and a little bit deeper. So it's still got a relatively narrow focus on a relatively specific goal, might be a little bit more looser than perhaps performance level, but we're still mostly focusing on behavior and doing, but we're also now starting to invite our client to reflect, to be reflective, and to consider what are they developing, what are they learning. Yeah. So this is about how the coach is showing up. They've just got a little bit more in their toolkit available to them to say, I can support you to work towards a goal. We're going to look at behavior, but we're also going to be looking at reflection, and we're going to be looking at what you're learning and how you might apply that learning in other aspects of your life, potentially, how you might share what you've learned with others. So this one's very much kind of bridging the gap between performance and transformative. Then we've got transformative, which is a big, big jump from developmental. Now, transformative is where we are working with our client's paradigm. So if I hold up my iceberg again, our client's paradigm is this unique constellation of beliefs, values, expectations, assumptions, conclusions, etc. And it's unique for every single person. And each of these things together forms an internal system, which we call someone's paradigm. It's basically their map of the world, their view of the world, their unique individual way of making sense of the world. It's made up of lots and lots of different filters, lots and lots of different parts. But if we make change in some of those parts, it will have an overall effect on the whole system, the whole paradigm. And when a paradigm shifts, things look different. We fundamentally change the way we look at things, and the things we look at change. They look different. So with transformative coaching, what we're interested in is exploring and holding space for our clients' paradigm and all the systems that they're part of, and very much encompassing all of that person. So this is where we are recognizing a human being rather than a human doing or something a bit more reductive. Now, not every client wants to work at the level of a paradigm shift. It's too big, it's too much, it's not what they're looking for. However, when we've trained in transformative coaching, it actually means that we can work at all of these levels and all of the nuances in between. So when we've trained in transformative coaching, we can actually move up and down, which means that we can be very responsive to our client. Because often a client will come to coaching thinking that they want to work on one thing, and then as the work unfolds, it emerges that actually there's other things, or the focus of the coaching might evolve or change. So they might start off in one place and we might end up needing to go to another level on this diagram, and then maybe we might need to move again. So it means that we can be adaptive and responsive to our client, and we don't feel restricted because we only know how to coach in one of these ways. The other way that I'd like to share what we mean by transformative coaching is sharing the 12 principles of transformative coaching with you. Now, this is very specific to Animas. So the term transformative coaching is not unique to Animas. We don't own that, we didn't invent that. However, this is what we mean by transformative coaching. That is specific to Animas. So there will be nuances. If you go to another coaching school and they're talking about transformational coaching or transformative coaching, don't assume they mean exactly the same thing. So the 12 principles, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, but obviously you've got the slide to have a look at when it gets sent to you. This is what our philosophy is based on, and also our course is based on these principles. So the first principle is arguably one of the most unfamiliar in terms of having to learn a different way of being, because it's unknowing. So the unknowing principle means that we are embracing curiosity and humility, allowing discovery to emerge naturally rather than going in thinking we know things. Because when we tell ourselves we know things, we shut ourselves off from curiosity and being able to see other possibilities. It's quite hard to unlearn showing up from a place of knowing. But often when we think we know things, it really gets in the way of our learning and our discovery. So unknowing and humanistic is the second one. So this is coming from the work of Carl Rogers and person-centered theory. And this is where we're saying that our client is creative, resourceful, and whole. They're not broken. They don't need fixing. Our job is to help them to access their own expertise and wisdom by creating the right conditions for that to happen. So we're very respectful of our clients' innate worth, their autonomy, and their capacity for growth. We don't try to do it for them. The next one is phenomenological, which is a wonderful word if you can pronounce it, which is where we're saying we value the client's unique lived experiences and perspectives. Yeah. We're not going to try to tell them it should be different. We're not going to judge. We're not going to assume that we know what their perspective is. We value, what we want to do is meet our client where they are, first of all, before we start trying to figure out what might need to be different. Again, there's a lot of humility involved here. The next one is relational. So a huge foundation of successful coaching is the quality of the relationship that's created between the coach and the client. So this is about building trust and empathy as the cornerstone of the coaching relationship, so that your client feels safe to be able to show up and to to share things that they might not have shared with another human being. They might not have even shared with themselves consciously. And without that trust and that rapport and that empathy, it's really difficult for someone to open up. It's difficult for someone to be vulnerable, and it's difficult for somebody to receive challenge as well. Dialogic. Essentially, coaching is a dialogue. And the dialogic principle is about co-creating insights. So, Debbie, you talked about that figure of 8, that flow backwards and forwards. So this is very much what we're talking about here. Co-creating insights through collaborative, open dialogue. The next one is emergent. So when we're co-creating insights through collaborative, open dialogue, that allows things to emerge. Yeah. So the emergent principle is trusting. There's a lot of trust here. We have to kind of learn to trust that this will happen. Trusting the organic unfolding of change within the coaching journey. Trusting that when the right conditions are created, change will happen. We don't need to try and force it or chase it or make it happen. So trusting that organic unfolding of change. Collaborative, partnering with our client to shape the coaching process together. We're not going to tell the client, this is what we're doing next, or this is what has to happen. We can offer possibilities, suggestions. We can also invite our client to consider might work for them best, what direction they want to go in, and co-create that together. Paradigmatic. So this is where we're talking about working with our clients' paradigms. So helping our clients to examine and shift the worldviews and the belief systems that are shaping their actions and their behavior. Holistic. Our client is not a brain on a stick. Yeah, they are so much more than that. So it's addressing all the parts of your client and the way that all of those parts are interconnected. Their mind, their brain, their conscious, their unconscious, their body, their emotions, their spirit, whatever, all the different parts. Yeah, the whole person for lasting transformation. Systemic, so we're not just assuming our client exists in a vacuum, we're also considering the broader systems and contexts in which our client operates. There's often huge amounts of support, resources, also obstacles, things that are within the client's control, outside of the client's control within those systems. So we'll pay attention to that as well. Integrative. So this means that we give ourselves permission to draw from diverse different theories and techniques and schools of thought in order to tailor our coaching to each client's needs. So there's no single coaching model that's going to be the right one for every single client every single time. So as long as what we're doing is fitting within the boundaries of coaching and not becoming something else, we can draw on theories and models and schools of thought from anywhere. Yeah, from music, from theatre, from organizational theory, from therapy, from yoga, from whatever it might be. If it fits within the boundaries of coaching, we can draw on it. That again allows us to be very responsive to our client. And finally, pragmatic. Coaching is one of the things that sets coaching apart from things like therapy is that it's ultimately pragmatic. It's about creating change. So the pragmatic principle is about, yes, we want to generate lots of insight and lots of learning. That's really important. But then we want to be able to translate that insight into achievable real world actions and change. Do something different, get a different result. So we've got the definition, we've got the 3 levels of change, and we've got the 12 principles. So why is coaching so relevant? So I'll share a few of our thoughts. It'd be great to hear some of yours. This is not going to be an exhaustive list, but what are some of the things going on in the world today that people are navigating that coaching can really be a response to? Why is coaching so relevant? These are a few of our thoughts. increasing amounts of disconnection. The real, like Radu, you said earlier, human beings sometimes need human beings, right? We are increasingly disconnected from real human being to human being connection. And at the same time, we have much greater visibility of these little curated slices of other people's lives online. So we're comparing our complicated, messy, crazy making real experience with these little glimpses of other people's lives online and thinking, these things aren't matching up. Yeah. Human being to human being connection is incredibly reassuring. Yeah. And also it helps us to regulate ourselves. Co-regulation, the regulation that we get from being around other people, um, is increasingly missing, I would suggest. I'm not saying that's fundamentally true for everybody. Uh, there are more personal options and choices in life, which is hooray, great, amazing, wonderful. Don't take my personal options and choices away from me, but at the same time, can be crazy making and overwhelming and confusing and anxiety inducing because how do we choose? Yeah. What if we get it wrong? What if people reject us or judge us from because of what we've chosen? It can be scary. Um, what else? A greater sense of personal freedom. Again, that's great. And I would fight tooth and nail to retain that freedom. But again, it can be overwhelming because what do I do with all that freedom? It can just paralyze sometimes. Evolving senses of identity and personhood. Yeah, even that isn't set in stone anymore. We're invited to reinvent ourselves over and over again. Who who even am I? Those things aren't kind of dictated to us anymore. So again, so many options, so many choices. What are we saying no to when we're saying yes to something? Cultural and intellectual contexts a lot of us are in that really focuses on growth. Yeah. If we're not growing and if we're not productive, it doesn't have any value. Yeah. The pace of change in society and technology. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Um, we're still operating on basically the same brain and nervous system that we did when we were living in caves. I mean, it's not massively different. So we've got the same software, but look at what we're navigating now. The pace of change, and also change is existentially threatening to us human beings because we don't like change. We like certainty. It helps us feel safe. It helps us feel like things make sense. So when things are constantly changing, it can be very, very unsettling. And all of this, I would suggest, can lead to a sense of overwhelm and anxiety. So these are just some of the ways that we see coaching being relevant and supporting people to navigate this stuff. As I said earlier, ultimately, this type of coaching is about a response to what it is to be a human being in the 21st century. I'd like to share with you some of the qualities and skills of a coach from our perspective. Again, it's not an exhaustive list. So some of the qualities of a coach that we feel are super important: humility. So that's tough sometimes, not going into that place of I know stuff or I'm the expert or, oh, I know the answer to this, because we've been so rewarded for showing up like that in the past. It can be quite hard to go, actually, I don't know, but I'm really happy to help you figure it out. Compassion. Yeah. Even if we don't agree with what our client is doing or the conclusions that they've arrived at, we can still have compassion for the human needs that they have, the human emotions that they're feeling, the human challenges that they're navigating. Courage. I'm curious, why might courage be an important quality of a coach? Why do you think courage might be important? Please do share in the chat. Openness. So being able to be really open, straightforward, honest, non-judgment. Again, it's really hard because we are essentially judgmental. We need to make judgments um, in order to navigate life. But putting some restraint around that judgment and actually showing up in a non-judgmental way to really help to create the safety so our client knows that they can show up with whatever they're thinking, whatever they're feeling, whatever they're considering, and that all of that will be contained without being judged or rejected or criticized or ridiculed or made wrong or any of that. Perceptiveness. So this is very linked to being able to listen, attention to detail. Perceptiveness is about not just what our client is saying, but how they're saying it. What are they not saying? What are they communicating non-verbally? What are the themes or the patterns or the connections that are showing up? What other things might be at play that our client isn't paying any attention to at the moment? And care. It's pretty tough to do this work well unless you actually genuinely care about people. So these are some of the qualities, and these are some of the skills, and they're very kind of interconnected, these two lists. So these are some of the skills that we feel are really important in a coach. So we've got listening, very connected to perceptiveness, noticing, also very connected to perceptiveness, not just the other person, but also perceptiveness towards ourselves so that we can put restraint around our judgments and our beliefs and our, whatever it is that might be showing up for us. Questioning. So coaching is not really about asking clever questions. It's about sparking insight and helping someone to learn about themselves and to grow into the fullest expression of themselves. And one of the ways that we can do that is through asking insightful, powerful questions that invite our client to generate that insight. So it's not about being clever or sophisticated or impressive in our questions. It's about often just really simple, straightforward, open questions that encourage our client to generate insight and learning and awareness, and then make choices. Reflecting, so there's that reflective surface we talked about, but also we are reflective in our work and we invite our client to be reflective as well. Challenging, very connected with the courage piece that we mentioned earlier. Supporting. So this type of coaching is equally about being supportive and gentle and holding, and also about challenging. Yeah. Being a disruptor to the current patterns. To help our client to be able to see other possibilities. Acknowledging, so helping our client to feel seen and heard. And holding. So we talk a lot in coaching around holding space for people. And for me, that means we create a container where all the parts of that person are welcome. And they're going to be contained. We're not going to let it leak out into any other areas. It's safe, it's contained. And within that container, they're not going to be judged or rejected for anything that they do bring. So that's what that means to me, like holding. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the coaching journey just to give you a sense of some of the milestones that you might encounter on that journey. Sometimes we can get very focused on the point at which we become qualified as a coach and not really have a sense of what might come after that. So we've got our initial coach training and qualification, which I'll be talking about shortly. After that, we will probably spend several years building our experience as either an independent or an internal coach. So building up our experience, building up our hours of practice, the different clients that we work with. Whilst we're doing that, we will be honing and crafting our coaching niche or our coaching identity. During that time, we will probably also seek coaching supervision. So best practice is, while we are working with our clients, we are also working with a supervisor who provides a space for us to reflect on our work and to ensure that we are operating within the boundaries of coaching, that we're operating in a way that is ethical, and that we also have a space where we continue to develop, and we can have that kind of restorative space as well, because sometimes, it can have an impact on us, the types of things that we might be exploring or encountering in our client sessions. Once we have built up a certain number of hours of experience, so working with clients, coaching clients, we might want to consider getting credentialed by a professional body. So this qualification that I'll be talking to you about in just a bit, this qualification is accredited, which means that you will hold a qualification that is recognised and accredited by several professional bodies. However, some coaches also like to be individually credentialed, so individually recognised by that professional body. And in order to do that, you need to build up a certain number of hours of experience, and you need to have a certain level of training. So this qualification gives you what you need in terms of the training, and then once you've built up the number of hours, you might want to get yourself individually credentialed. You'll probably be undergoing, that sounds heavy, doesn't it? Engaging with ongoing professional development, so other courses, other exploration, other training in areas that you want to specialize in or that you particularly want to develop further. That will all be honing your coaching identity and your coaching style as well. You might at some point think about becoming a coaching mentor or a trainer, or indeed a coaching supervisor once you've got a significant amount of experience. So these are some of the things that you might encounter. It's not necessarily in that order and not necessarily all of those things. It's a very personal journey, but these are some of the milestones that you might think about on the way. And then in terms of different career pathways, a lot of people come to these open sessions with the idea of quitting their job and becoming an independent coach in private practice. And that is absolutely one option, but it's not the only option. So when we work as an independent coach, what that means is we've got our own coaching practice, our own coaching business, and we are delivering our service of coaching under our own brand or business name. Now, that could be your full-time thing, or it could be part of a number of things that you do. So an independent coach is where you run your own business, you deliver your service under your own brand, and you're usually a sole trader and you're responsible for all of the aspects of running the business. So not just delivering the service, but also finance, admin, marketing, sales, all of that kind of stuff. You might also want to work as an associate coach. So in this way, you are self-employed, but you are working as an associate for another brand. So for example, right now, I'm working as an associate presenter for Animas. So although I'm freelance, although I'm self-employed, I'm currently representing Animas. I'm not representing my coaching practice or myself. Okay. Now, that really suits some people, and it really suits me because I don't actually like all of the other aspects of running a business. I really like delivering my service of coaching or training or supervision. I really don't like doing all the admin, the website stuff, the marketing, the sales. I'm massively resistant to it, if I'm honest. So I've had to find a different way of doing things. So that's an option as well. I actually do a bit of both of these things, which works well for me. So you don't only have to choose one of them. If you work as an internal coach, that's quite different. That means that you're actually employed by an organization to coach other people within that same organization. And most internal coaches have a split role. So you might be a project manager and an internal coach. You might be a finance manager and an internal coach. Yeah. You might be an executive assistant and an internal coach. So generally, a lot of the internal coaches that I work with, they have split roles. And that can be great if you don't actually want to leave the job that you're currently doing. You'd like to do coaching as well, potentially within your current organization or another organization that you've got a connection with. It is a bit different though, because you and your clients are both operating within the same organizational system, and there is some kind of a relationship before the coaching and some kind of a relationship after the coaching because you're both working for the same organization. And you might also encounter those clients in different aspects of your role. Coaching as an additional service. So this is where you already offer other services. That could be, I don't know, nutrition advice, yoga, massage, retreats, training, accountancy, hairdressing, whatever it might be. Maybe you're a mechanic and a coach, whatever it is, but you offer coaching alongside other services. And then social impact or volunteer coach. So social impact coaching is where you are helping coaching to be available to groups of people who might not otherwise have access to coaching. Often that's disadvantaged groups, or it's groups of people that don't have any awareness of coaching, so they wouldn't naturally look for it for themselves because they're not really even aware of it. And social impact coaching means that by giving those people access to coaching, it's going to have a positive impact on society. So a ripple effect. So that it's a very wide area of possibilities. So you can potentially create your own social impact coaching enterprise. You might join one that already exists. You can work in social impact coaching on a pro bono basis, so unpaid, or there are paid opportunities as well. There's an organisation called Spark Inside, for example, that where people work as an associate coach to support people in prisons. There are organisations where you can work as an associate coach working with young people. There are also charities where it's more on a voluntary basis. So there's lots of different options and varieties there. I had a colleague within the Animas community who created a social impact company that was specifically focused on making coaching available to female refugees in London. Yeah, so very, very specific and very niche. But for now, what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit more about Animas and the course. So this is Nick Bolton. He's the founder and CEO of Animas. And our purpose, our kind of philosophy, our mission, if you like, is to empower individuals to find clarity, courage, and self-compassion as they explore their lives, their work, their relationships, and their sense of self. And we enable meaningful change to happen through conversations that transcend the surface and embrace the heart of what it means to be human. So, very much about human beings and the whole of that person. So let me tell you about the training. So the training that we're offering is called the Accredited Diploma in Transformative Coaching. And first of all, I'd like to just explain what we mean by accredited. So when we say accredited, what we mean is that in our case, these three professional bodies have examined and scrutinized the content of the course and the way that it's taught, and they are, all three of them, confident that it meets or exceeds their expectations. such that they are willing to put their brand against this training and qualification. What that does is it gives you confidence about the quality of the training and the credibility of the training. And I would encourage you to consider, with whatever coaching school or training establishment that you choose, I would invite you to check what accreditations they've got. So in our case, we've got ICF, the International Coach Federation, which is the largest international professional body for coaching. We've got the Association for Coaching, which is the largest one in the UK. And we've got the EMCC, which stands for the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, which is one of the largest ones in Europe. So with the ICF, they consider this training to meet their requirements for level 2. What that means, they've got 3 levels. They've got associate coach, professional coach, and master coach. Level 2 is professional coach. So what this means is that once you've built up the number of hours that they require, you can apply to the ICF for that level 2 credential. This qualification gives you everything that you need apart from those hours of experience. Same with the EMCC, senior practitioner. Once you've built up the number of hours of experience, you've got everything that you need if you've done this qualification to get that level of credential. So the live training modules, the course, the backbone of the course and the training are these live training modules. And each of those lasts for 2 full days, either on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or on a Saturday, Sunday. So 2 full days of online training per month. Yeah, so each module is 2 days, and you do 1 module per month over the course of 6 months. I'll say that again in a little bit because it can sound a bit complicated to begin with. I'm going to tell you about the live training modules and then give you an overview of the rest of the course and the resources. So the first module is called Foundations of Transformative Coaching. So in this first module, we're basically creating all of the foundations that you need in order to build on for the rest of the training. The next module is Shaping Reality, Beliefs, Worldviews and Meanings. So this is where we are looking at beliefs, narratives, worldviews, cognitive behavioral theory, transformative learning theory. So we're going to give you lots of lenses and tools as we go through this training that you can integrate into your work. So we're doing our first kind of deep dive into our client's inner world. The next module is about holding the whole person, the whole body, the whole context, the whole system. So really addressing the whole person, not just one small part of them. This is bringing in the humanistic principles, the systemic principles that we spoke about earlier. And it's also about how can we be really attuned to ourselves as well as to our client. That obviously starts to bring in a lot of complexity because we're looking at quite a broad scope of things. So the next one is coaching in complexity, recognizing that the human experience can be complex, it can be ambiguous, there can be lots of paradoxes that seem to contradict themselves. Some things emerge, and as they're emerging, they're not clear at the time until they have fully emerged. So how do we work with all of that? The next one is becoming and being. So this is about really coaching the self. Who am I becoming? Who am I being? Not just what am I doing? So we're looking at identity, we're looking at narrative theory, we're looking at also transactional analysis, which helps us to consider that our client is made up of different parts. Yeah, so each of those parts can be thinking, feeling, and behaving quite differently. And then the final one is called the emergent practitioner. So this is where we're integrating everything that we've learned, self, relationship, practice, and thinking about who are we becoming as a coach, and who are we being as a coach, and what do we want to move forward towards in terms of all of that, and really just preparing ourselves practically and psychologically for the next chapter, which is moving towards the assessment process. So that's the live training. So let me share a kind of a high level overview of the whole piece. So we've got our 6 2-day live online modules. Each of them starts at 9:30 in the morning, finishes at 5:30 in the evening, UK time. 2 consecutive days. It's quite intense. You can't absorb it all in one go. However, all of the training is recorded, so you will have access to the recordings of your training as well, because you just can't absorb it all in one go. It's like trying to eat an entire buffet at once. You can't. You just go and pick the bits that are useful, digest those, then you can go back for more. You'll be in a group of up to 15 people, and you'll be with that same group throughout all of the training. So you'll have your kind of mini tribe or family that you're all on this journey together. You can support each other, collaborate, practice with each other. Everything is accredited, as I mentioned previously. You will also, just to kind of speak to the point that was queried earlier, you will also have 10 hours of one-to-one mentoring. So that will give you the mentoring element that you need. You also have access to group supervision. So you never need to feel alone in terms of navigating your coaching practice. You'll have access to group supervision so that you can get support with any queries, issues, challenges, questions that are coming up as a result of your practice work. As I mentioned, all of the training is recorded, so you will have access to recordings of your training. It's not generic recordings. You'll have access of your training with your group, with your trainer. There's also an introductory video series to help kind of get you ready for the very first module. And from your first day of live training, so from day 1 of module 1, you then have 12 months to complete the qualification. For 6 months, you'll be doing 1 module per month, and then you'll have another 6 months to do all the other things that you might need to do in order to be ready to qualify. So that's kind of a high level overview. And then there is lots of support available to you. So we really believe that all of our coaches should have access to really robust support whilst they're training with us and after they've trained with us. Yeah, so we're not just going to say, congratulations, you've got your qualification, goodbye, good luck. We continue to offer lots and lots of support. So whilst you're doing your training, you'll have access to the coaching clinic, which is online group supervision. You can get support with any issues or questions that are coming up in your coaching practice. You'll have access to the practice cafe, which is a place, online group facilitated space where you can practice coaching with other coaches. So it means that you can hone your skills, you can have the opportunity to be the coach and the client and an observer, because you'll learn a lot from all of those perspectives. Coaching competency conversations, where we really unpack the different core competencies from each of the professional bodies. So again, those are opportunities to come together with a group online. It's a facilitated conversation to really get granular about those competencies. And you'll have a single point of contact, a dedicated learning coordinator. So one person that you can contact for everything. So you never have to think, I don't know who to contact about this or about that. It's always one person and they will deal with it for you. From the moment that you enroll and ongoing for life, you will have access to the campus, which is our online members only platform where we host all of our resources, and we also have the community there, so you can interact with the community. It's a little bit like Facebook, but just for the Animas community, so that you can collaborate, you can connect, you can ask questions, you can seek advice, you can ask people for their experience. So you've got the campus and you have access to that for life. Once you've qualified, you have access to the coaching forum, which is online group supervision for qualified coaches. So that's a membership benefit. It's not compulsory, but you have access to free of charge group supervision for qualified coaches for life. The coaching directory, that's the Animas directory for coaches. So people can, if they're looking for an Animas coach to work with, they can search on there and find you. So you can list yourself on that once you've qualified. And we run loads of free events and lectures and workshops. So the resources that are on the campus, you've got a huge section that is about coaching and another huge section which is about running a coaching business or creating a coaching practice and running it. So one half of it is really about coaching. So there's demos, there's books, there's talks, there's lectures, there's podcasts, there's all kinds of different things. The other half is about running a business. Again, there's talks, lectures, workshops, demos, templates, all kinds of different things there to support you with that. Things like marketing and sales and all kinds of different things. I just want to talk about next steps. So what happens after this? This is kind of like a general overview, and then you'll have an opportunity to have a consultation call with either AD or Andrea. It's possible that some of you might have already spoken to one of these ladies already. So this is where you can have a focused one-to-one conversation that is just about you. So next steps. We're inviting you to have a one-to-one session with one of the course consultants. You can use that to explore your coaching goals and aspirations with an experienced coach. So you can have a little mini coaching session, ask any questions that you've got about the coaching profession, what it's like to work as a coach. You can find out more about the diploma so you can decide if it's right for you or not. And you can get answers to practical questions about qualifications and credentials and those sorts of things. So it really is worth having this conversation, just to kind of find out more and take the next step down your path of exploration. You don't need to be sure that this is right for you or not. This conversation will help you with that. I hope you found this useful and that you're feeling a bit more informed than you were at the beginning. And good luck and go well on the next stage of your coaching exploration journey. I very much hope that I see some of you in the training space at some point. So thank you, go well, and have a great rest of your day.